pieces up and down so you're not flexing the foam. You want to make sure that this little end piece is not, you know, with the friction of the foam, you don't want it flexing up and down. So you want to kind of work it in and out and make sure that this line's staying flat. Practice a few times putting it together first. You have to before you do glue. And so I'm moving it back and forth, wiggling it in. And then I'm looking for my print. The checkers are lined up real nice here. If it doesn't line up, take it off and try the other side. Maybe it'll line up better. And I always like the, prefer the top to line up rather than the bottom. And in this case, either side line up the same. And you'll see here that these two silver lines are, I call it cowl lines, are lined up. But more importantly is the firewall, to make sure that your firewall is going to have no up or down thrust. As I move this cross brace fore and aft, it's going to change the thrust up and down. So you want to get everything slid in there, looking good, and then just give a check see on the thrust line. Everything, yeah, that's going to work out great. You may want to use a 90-degree square like the speed square to help you get this cross brace 90 degrees to the fuselage side as you glue it. The key is here just to take your time, kind of pinching it together, pushing down lightly. And I'll put a couple tacks of glue. Make sure it's not, check every once in a while, make sure you're not sticking it down to the table, glue going through the joint, or something you'll have to kind of keep an eye on. Looks good. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Slide it in, line up all the tabs. Got the firewall out of the package. Again, checking the thrust. Looks like it's all going to line up really nice. Thrust line's good. Little firewall there. No up or down thrust. If anything, you may want just a touch of right thrust, but I fly them without it. You can easily mix a little rudder with the throttle and change it. And then I'm looking here to make sure it's nice, and there's a nice cross there, nice 90 degrees to each other. And start tacking it down. a fairly large gap there, about a 64th of an inch or so, but put a bead in there, squirt it, push it together. The gap is gone. Keep sighting down it. Make sure your rails are nice and straight there on both sides. Good 90 degrees to each other. Look down the bottom. Looks good. A little bit of flex at the end's alright. We can just kind of flex it a little bit and get it straightened. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a bead. You could probably get away with that, but I think over time it's going to start cracking. You're going to start cracking those joints. So I'm a fan on these outdoor models of putting a good bead down their entire length. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and glue the firewall on. I'm going to pick the side that looks the cleanest and put that forward. It drops right in there. I'm going to double check the thrust here again. You know, if you need to trim a little bit of that foam, sand it, and use like 100 grit or so. You can touch it up to get the thrust just right here. 99.9% of the time it's perfect like that, as long as those tabs are lined up. You want to put the glue on the foam. And I'm going to spray the firewall where it connects. And I'm going to drop one end on here, line it up. Drop on the other end. And it's still not touching at the top, and then I'll just push the top in once it's lined up. You got some time here if it's a little crooked to move it. And you can actually crunch the foam just a little bit to get that last little bit of straightness out of it. Again, if you need to use your speed square to check it, go ahead and do that. And then I'll go ahead and put a good sized bead on the bottom side before the firewall and the fuselage meet. Squirt it. Went ahead and opened our little pack of firewall support, landing gear support, little bits and pieces here. Get to our firewall and our little balsa wood firewall supports. There's two different angles on there. I call the steep angle over here and the shallow angle over here. If you have to trim any of this, you'll always trim this shallow angle here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop it in at a corner, and it lines up like so. Just like that. Now if this little balsa wood is sticking up above the firewall, measure that distance that it's sticking up above, and that's the exact amount you will trim off this shallow angle. And you trim however much it's sticking up above the firewall, and that thing will drop down in there, and you want that flush down with the firewall. This one's lining up perfect. So I'll go ahead and take some Foam Safe CA, put it on all three corners, this steep corner, the front where it meets the firewall, and then this shallow angle, a little bit. Make sure it doesn't drip anywhere, not enough to drip. Line it up. Now I'm lining it up with the firewall first.